Granville was a small place. It was a small place back in the 1800s, and I usually come up here about one day a month. I'm on a Thursday, and I'm in here, and people come into the museum, and I'll ask them where they're from, and they say if they have ancestors from Granville, I've got my family tree there on my computer, and we'll consult that. About half of the time, we have a common ancestor, or a cousin married a cousin. So that's the part of the fun of coming to Granville and going through the museum. We have a genealogy section back there. We go back and talk about the riverboat days when Granville was a riverboat town, and the Cumberland River was the interstate highway of the 1800s, when there were 45 steamboats coming up down this river between here and Nashville. And when there were 6 general stores in town. I believe there's 6, might have been 5. I have to look over at the sign.
Welcome to another edition of Community Insight. Join us as we travel Middle Tennessee, uncovering history and experiencing the adventure of unique stories and events coming to you inside your community.
Good afternoon. I'm Carl Cantrell. I'm standing here in front of the Granville Museum in Granville, Tennessee. We're open most days of the week from about noon until 3 p.m. and on Saturdays, I think until 5. If you come and step in the door, you're going to see all kinds of pictures, relics from a time and history that we look back fondly on before it became a ghost town back in 1990, or as reported in one of the papers. There are pictures on the walls of my ancestors. I have my dad when he was in the World War II. There's a picture of him in there. There's my dad and his siblings, and mother and father on another wall. And I'm pretty typical of a lot of other people that come and visit Granville. And it's really a joy to go in and see people you're related to on the wall. Granville was a small place. It was a small place back in the 1800s, and I usually come up here about one day a month. I'm on a Thursday, and I'm in here, and people come into the museum, and I'll ask them where they're from, and they say if they have ancestors from Granville, I've got my family tree there on my computer, and we'll consult that. About half of the time, we have a common ancestor, or a cousin married a cousin. So that's the part of the fun of coming to Granville and going through the museum. We have a genealogy section back there. We go back and talk about the riverboat days when Granville was a riverboat town, and the Cumberland River was the interstate highway of the 1800s, when there were 45 steamboats coming up down this river between here and Nashville. And when there were 6 general stores in town. I believe there's 6, might have been 5. I have to look over at the sign. But anyway, back to a time that's come and gone, I guess, because with the advent of Cordell Hull Dam, flooding here, Interstate 40, history kind of moved away from this riverboat town. but we're still here. Come and see us.
Familiar with the movie from 1953, 54, the long, long trailer, but we've got our version of it, and that's what we travel around in. So
we have the not so long trailer. It has its own social media, Facebook page and Instagram. We also have a website, www.ourtechnicolorlife. If you'd like to follow along, we do teas. I run a tea room out of our vintage historic home in downtown Corydon. We've got a Rosie and the Rockabilly's 1950s band, a 1920s band called the Tin Pan Alley Cats, and we do a 40s tribute show in addition to Lucy tribute show. Lots of fun stuff. It's all in our Technicolor life. And thank you so much for hanging out in the cold.
It was a rough day.
Looks like the sun's coming out. And we'll be by the camera to say hello, get pictures and whatnot. And thank you guys.
And I know we've got a parade coming up at 3:30, so don't forget about the parade.
Good afternoon. I'm Herman Radke. I'm a volunteer here at Historic Granville, and we're in the Antique Car Museum. And from the outside, it looks like a 1930s filling station, but we've got a nice group of cars and trucks in here that are privately owned, that have been donated to sit here for a year, and next year we'll have a brand new bunch of vehicles that'll be different. This is a 1930 Ford Model A pickup truck that when they restored it, they fixed it up like a peddler's truck. And back in the 30s, peddlers used to come out in the country and they would sell fruits and vegetables. They would also have anything you needed, a coffee pot, needles and thread, candy for the kids, and they'd go around to out in the country to these farms, and most people didn't have a car and didn't get to town very often, so they'd come up and they'd sell you what you needed. But they did an excellent job restoring this, and we're very glad to have it here in the museum. Okay, we'll move up here. This is a 1940 Ford. It was originally sold in Chattanooga at a dealership, and the original price was $825. And what makes this thing different was this is an actual moonshine runner's car. It ran shine down around Chattanooga, and then it ended up around Sparta, and the man in Sparta ran shine with it there. This is a typical moonshine runner's car. They took the flathead V8 out of it that was probably 85 horse, and they put a Thunderbird V8 in it. And that helped it outrun the cops better. And it's got heavy-duty springs in the back, so when they had it loaded with shine, it didn't squat down and it didn't look suspicious. But it's a very beautiful car. It's been all restored. And there's no telling the adventures this thing has seen. It's a pretty cool car. This is a coupe, business coupe. Didn't have much of a back seat, but look at the trunk. You could haul a bunch of shine back there. And that aluminum box is, when they restored it this last time, they put the battery in there to keep, so it wouldn't leak acid in the trunk. But it's a very well restored vehicle. Yeah, the museum is open every week. I believe it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So if you're able to come up here during the week, we'd be glad to have you.
You got a bunch of toys and stuff also.
Oh yeah, local people. These are all local things. Toys that people had when they were kids. And here's a 1950, Stan Webster got this. His grandfather gave it to him for Christmas or a birthday or something. And it means a whole lot to him. But we've got a couple pedal cars, a pedal tractor up there. People brought their bicycles up here. Also, we've got some old garage equipment, a tire changer, a jack, old lawnmowers, toys up there on the wall, and pretty good assortment of things to see. But there are things here you're just not going to see anywhere else. Well, in museums, but that's the only place you're going to see them. But it's pretty good cross section. This Plymouth was in a garage on a place back on the back side of Granville up here on some mountain. And the man that owned it he was getting older, and this didn't have good brakes, and he was afraid to drive it. And one of the volunteers here heard about it, went up, found it, talked to the guy and bought it. And all he had to do to this car was, of course, fix the brakes. He did that. He cleaned out the gas tank because it had funky gas in it. He blew out the gas line, cleaned the fuel filters, fired it right up. Of course, he probably put a battery in it too, but this was a well-running car. He washed the car, waxed it, buffed it out, and that's the finish. He didn't have to repaint it or anything. And it was sitting right out here behind Granville somewhere on a hill in a garage. So they're still out there. But it's a very beautiful car. Hey, how you doing?
All right.
Here's some bicycles that people have brought. They have restored and brought down here for people to see. And these are probably all from the 50s and early 60s.
So do you do some of the tours
Yeah.
through the year? That's great.
Yeah, I'm usually here every Wednesday. Well, one Wednesday a month.
Okay, I got you.
We've got enough volunteers where they don't wear anybody out.
That's good.
And on a day like this where we're having the wine festival and the genealogy and all this other thing, there's 3 of us out here. But there's some very nice.
So Herman, what's your roots to Granville?
My roots, well, I moved to Smith County, one bend of the river over, 40-something years ago. And I used to come through Granville to see my uncle. And I got to wondering, I said, there's a bank building. What in the heck? Why is there a bank building out here in the middle of nowhere? And I never could figure it out. But since then, I've learned that this was a jumping place at the turn of the century. This was a riverboat town. The Cumberland River's right out here. The riverboats used to come from Nashville and bring supplies. This was the furthest east that they came. So they had 3 riverboat landings, 3 warehouses, and they would bring supplies for all the stores east of here. Cookeville, Livingston, all up and down. And they would come here to pick up their supplies, and the farmers would come down here. They had buyers on the riverboats. They could sell their chickens, pigs, whatever they had to buyers on the riverboats. And also there was 4 stores here. There was 3 blacksmith shops, and there was 3 grist mills here around the turn of the century. So this was a hopping place. This was a hub. And that's why the bank building's still there. But I never knew that, and I started asking questions. And I don't know the dates and everything, but Sutton bought that original Sutton store and restored it. And he got old, sick, and he donated it to the Granville Historical Society, and it's been maintained by volunteers. There's all kinds of, I think 150-something volunteers that come here and work and deal with the public. But this beautiful store over there to see. There's a museum there in the church that tells the history of Granville, and there's a part of it about the war years when they had maneuvers here. And this is a gem. It's really a gem. But I'm really happy to come out here and do this. I'm retired, And I just enjoy meeting people and seeing. I see a lot of my old friends. They come through and they say, "What are you doing here, Herman? I haven't seen you in 10 years." So it's really good.
Well, Herman, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I just hope somebody sees this and says, "I need to go to Granville." You won't be disappointed.
Don had already gotten the movie deal with, it was actually Universal.
Universal, yes, right.
The Ghost of Mr. Chicken and the Shakiest Gun in the West, all those movies. Or, no, Shakiest Gun, I guess, was after that.
A little bit later.
Yeah, Reluctant Astronaut, yeah, those movies.
So he was under contract, had to go, but he would pop back in, obviously.
Yeah, he came back and appeared most of the seasons there at the end. So
During sweeps week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they would put him in during sweeps to help, get the last few
Ratings higher.
episodes, yeah.
Yeah.
Finish strong.
So anybody got any kind of questions? Don't know if we can answer them, but we'll try.
Where did they film it?
It was all filmed out in California.
And he got to go visit a lot of the scenes and sites from that this past year.
Yeah, back in August of last year, I went out to Myers Lake, where they actually filmed Andy and Opie walking. That's still there. It's called the Franklin Canyon Reservoir. And that's a water reservoir for the city of Los Angeles. It's drinking water. And so that's where that really is. And it's still there. It's Franklin Canyon Park is where it is, up in the hills of Hollywood. And you can still go there and you can walk right to where Andy and Opie walked. And it still looks very similar.
Ah, he got me!
My goodness.
I shot myself in the foot again.
Yeah, it's still, it looks very similar.
You gotta get a new pair of...
Whoa!
Oh, my goodness.
Somebody help Ricky and Lucy's clothes back up.
Man, gotta get some sandbags.
So yeah, that's still there. And I do a podcast called Two Chairs No Waiting. It's the Andy Griffith Show podcast. And you can go, if you go and search it, you'll find there's video episodes I did about traveling out to Franklin Canyon. So this definitely, if you'd like to see some more about that, that's really a neat place.
Yeah, I was going to mention that if you didn't, but the podcast is great. Two Chairs No Waiting. You can get it. It goes live on Facebook, and then the recording comes out the next day.
That's right.
And you can watch it or listen to it either way. It goes on to YouTube, whatever.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. You can watch it. You can watch the videos on YouTube. But yeah, that one in particular, you want to watch the video version. Usually the audio version of the show and the video version of the show are the same of my podcast. But in that particular one, you want to see Franklin Canyon.
Yeah. Usually it's a picture of Alan looking on his computer screen trying to figure out how to turn something off. Now it's really well done.
Right.
It's 270 episodes?
No,
680.
Yeah, 680.
680 episodes.
Yeah.
So if you start listening tomorrow, 2 years from now, you still won't be caught up. If you listen to a different one every day.
That's right.
Now, when you started that podcast, obviously podcasting was kind of new back then.
It was. Yeah, I started back in 2008.
Oh, that was brand new.
It was brand new, and I run a website called I'mAberry.com. It's all about the Andy Griffith Show, obviously. But there was some audio interviews that were on there of Andy Griffith Show cast members, and I was going to make those into MP3 files because they were in a format called Real Audio. Most of y'all probably don't remember that, but back in the 90s, that's how you streamed audio. Well, I wanted to convert them into MP3s where modern people could listen to them. And so I started the podcast just to do that, and then
you just kept doing it.
Yeah, I just kept doing it, and so here we are, all these years later, 680 episodes nearly.
And you can, when you listen on the recording day, you can get in a little chat room and talk to other people, meet people from around the country, and different people. It's real fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So those are on Monday nights. If you'd like to join us, it's 7 o'clock Central Time on Monday nights. You can go to live.twochairsnowaiting.com and you can join in. You can be there. Or you can just wait and listen to it the next night because it'll be out at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays when it all comes out. Because Barney likes to watch it while he's eating cashew fudge with Thelma Lou.
That's right, yeah. We'll kick back on the couch, have a little cashew fudge.
Yeah, so that's what comes out on Tuesday nights.
Thank y'all very much. We appreciate your attendance, your enthusiasm. Appreciate the boys and Charlene entertaining y'all. We're going to close with something I wrote a few years back called A Dose of Mayberry. We'll have the parade a little bit later and I hope y'all stay for that.
A dose of Mayberry. They came into our living room on black and white TV after Danny got a ticket speeding through Mayberry. The sheriff without a gun was known as Andy Taylor, kept law and order by treating people right and won the people's favor. Andy never got too full of himself. If he did, someone brought him down. He smoked at first and drank one beer, but that was in another town. Aunt Bee tried to take Rose's place, and Opie treated her mean. But it worked out. Her cooking helped, except her pickles tasted like kerosene. Old Barn was a pistol, but he had 5 bullets missing, because he would get too excited, like when he saw Gomer and Thelma Lou kissing. There was Miss Rosemary, Hilda May, and Juanita, the waitress we never see. Skippy was fun from Mount Pilot, but Barnes said, "Thel, you're the only one for me." "Flow Gently, Sweet Afton" was Mayor Pike's favorite tune. He let his daughter sing it often, and it usually cleared the room. She had a toothy smile and made good faces too. She put Emma in her sick bed, but Ellie for counsel just wouldn't do. Gomer worked at Wally's until he left to do his duty. His cousin Goober loved to dance and take off on Judy, Judy, Judy. The barber shop only had one chair, and Floyd's wife we never see. Telephone, telegraph, and tell Floyd, and he was once deputy number 3. They worshiped at All Souls Church, where Reverend Tucker filled the pews. Andy said he could be dry as dust, and Opie put it in the news. The jail's best customer was a guy named Otis Campbell. He just let himself in whenever he had a snootful. He came down from the mountains and was in Miss Crump's class. He cleaned up for Mrs. Y. Lee, but you never heard the last of Ernest T. Bass. My favorites were the Darlings. The boys were shy and didn't say much, but they sure could play and sing, and Charlene's voice was just the right touch. Miss B's rose poetry and pearly onions touched Briscoe's heart and made him swoon. He sang to her and made his muscle bug, but he breached the promise because of that spoon.